Well, with Real Madrid and Manchester City on the horizon, the Spanish press has come up with these headlines. Un monstruo viene a verte. A monster is coming to see ya. Us scared a little bit of Haaland with Rudiger right behind him. And Marca has taken a Aurélien Chouameni quote and gone with, "It's not the manager's fault. We need to improve." Alta tensión, high tension in this matchup between Manchester City that is traveling to the Bernabeu. Now, Charlie, there are strong suggestions that Xabi Alonso's job is on the line in just this one game. Do you believe that the situation is this dramatic?
No, but if it were to be, then he's already gone. If it's at the point where your decision on keeping Xabi Alonso is on one match in December, then he's dead man walking, if that's the case. You have to give him time to one, get a good understanding of what is the potential with this current group. Is it winning Champions League and winning the Liga now without stumbling along the way? But we all know Xabi Alonso is a great manager, but is it the wrong time to be at Real Madrid?
I would say, can you believe it's down to one match whether or not this coach keeps his job?
So early.
I would go along
Yes.
with Charlie. I'd say, no, I wouldn't believe it at all until you say it's Real Madrid.
So the theme, I think, of the day, of the week, really, between Liverpool, between Real Madrid, it's taking command of your dressing room. And we've seen several moments. Do you think Xabi Alonso has command of the dressing room today?
I think he does have command of the dressing room.
Why did you take so long to answer? You hesitated there, which means that there's doubt in your mind.
Well, I'm talking about the egos, or I'm thinking about the egos in that locker room with Vinny Jr., with Mbappé, with Jude Bellingham, in particular, because Jude Bellingham, we haven't seen the best of him yet under Xabi Alonso, and that's got to be his job of getting the most out of Jude Bellingham, but also out of Vinny Jr. and Mbappé, which we knew was going to be difficult.
So let's play along with this situation, though. Imagine they do lose to Manchester City, and Xabi Alonso does get fired. Florentino decides to axe the manager that he was courting for, the last year and a half. What do you think, what type of message, Jeff, do you think that sends to the player? Does it empower them?
I was trying to remember. I was racking my brains as you were talking there. Who is it? And I'm sure it was a famous British coach. Ended up in conversation with Florentino Perez, and he asked him about the balance of power between the players and the coach in the dressing room. And the person asked said, is it really like 50-50? The players have that much power? And Perez allegedly said, no, it's 90% the players. So this is historically a difficult dressing room to manage. So agree with all your questions, but this is a unique club, and taming it. I think he has the dressing room, the majority, but the minority.
That's where my hesitation was.
The minority,
it's not the complete.
Right. Yeah, but your problem is a bit like the one at Liverpool. If the minority are big players who make big noise, that's a bigger problem.
Sometimes it just takes one bad apple. To rot the energy in the dressing room.
100%.
And I think it might not just be one bad apple, and not only that, it's public, right? There's leaks that Vinny doesn't get along, that he has no relationship with Xavi.
Nico, but you know this league well, you know this club well. Do you not agree that we can't even compare it to Liverpool, even though I just did, because the history of this club, because of the turnover of managers, because of the player power, etc. It's a different kettle of fish to everywhere else.
It stands within its own. It's an example of its own. You can only compare Real Madrid to the successes of the past. And this has happened before at Real Madrid, where players had more command than the manager, more authority. And we saw Rafa Benitez sacked.
Yeah.
We saw Julen Lopetegui sacked within their first year. So this is not uncharted waters that Xabi Alonso is walking into. So it is a delicate situation, and it might just be as dramatic as the press makes it out to seem. Just from an optics perspective, Real Madrid loses at home to Manchester City. With everything that's being said, it could get critical. I want to add another...
But this depends how they lose as well, Nico.
This is my thing, though, with Real Madrid at the moment. They are still second in La Liga.
That's not good enough. And they could possibly be
for
third.
now.
Villarreal is right
Charlie,
there.
they're closer to third than they are first.
But at the same point, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
We're not talking about this is Manchester City dropping down out of a Champions League spot. You know, this is Real Madrid, who still haven't been performing at their best and are along the top.
I think it's more about that. It's about the performances and stuff like that.
Well, if they lose, how they lose as well.
Correct, and they haven't been convincing. So I do want to add another voice to this conversation, in Guillem Balagué, who was at the press conferences for Xabi Alonso and Pep Guardiola. Guillem, welcome into the show. Listen, there's obviously another team playing in this matchup, but it's Manchester City. Naturally, Xabi Alonso was a player under Pep Guardiola, the Manchester City manager, and they asked him yesterday if there was any advice, and I'm going to try to say this in the most polite way, because the Pep quote wasn't that polite. It's, how about he pisses his own way, which is a crass way of saying die by the sword, if you will. Can you expand on that, Guillem?
Well, yes, he was asked an advice to Xabi Alonso, and as you said, he said he should pee with his own. That's exactly the literal translation of it. Context, of course, here is important. When in those famous wars between Jose Mourinho and Pep Guardiola, the Madrid press lined up with Jose Mourinho, no matter what. And an expression started being used, which is that Pep Guardiola peed perfume, which is an expression I've never heard before until it came out in the Madrid press. When you're trying to describe somebody who's arrogant, who thinks he's superior, who thinks he knows everything. So that has been used all these years against Pep Guardiola. And I think Pep has had in the back of his mind, at some point, someday, when he's right, I'll come out with something that try to kill that discussion. So, of course, he jumped at the occasion, an advice to Xabi, and he went like, he should pee with his own. And we all went like that. And he went like, yeah, he should pee with his own. And by the way, he will not pee perfume, so he'll be all right. And then he smiled and went like, there you are. You got your headline. You're happy now.
Fair play. You've got to say fair play.
Yeah.
Guillem, you heard us talking. What's your reading of the situation?
Right, I'm going to put you all the angles of this story, because you have to count, of course, the Xavi's entourage, board, players. First of all, Xavi entourage is telling me that many more things have to happen for him to get the sack. That will be the logical assumption. But that the culture of the club, of the team, is not going to change. What they mean by that is that players are in charge. There are a bunch of things that they want to do, and the Xabi Alonso, and he has not convinced them to do them at this point. The board, who, of course, as you know, met after the Celta game, and it's interesting that such a hermetic club let us know that there was a meeting between the three key decision makers at the club after the Celta defeat at the Bernabeu. We all knew about it. Why? Because they wanted to add the pressure and prepare for what may come, which is the sacking of Xabi Alonso. Maybe not after a defeat against Manchester City, unless it's a terrible defeat. But their impression is that there is no harmony between players and the manager hasn't really found the formula to get the best out of that team. And thirdly, Xabi Alonso is thinking, it's Real Madrid. And I'm starting to feel that he thought, oh, Real Madrid called me. Okay, better do that and then continue with my career. Because as Nico said, they are outliers, aren't they? They just got their own rules, their own way of doing things. 3 times in the last 20 years, the number 2 at Real Madrid has convinced Florentino Perez, should we go with a collective approach, with methodology, with structure? And Florentino went like, yeah, okay, whatever. But every time he fails, very quickly, Florentino turns against it. Rafa Benitez, Julio Lopetegui, and it's happening here. He doesn't think Xabi Alonso is the man. And as Jeff was saying, it was Ed Woodward, the vice executive of Manchester United, who actually said that, told that story from Florentino Perez from 10 years ago. But I don't think the percentage has changed much. He feels there's a direct line between the players and Florentino, and they are in charge. That culture cannot be changed, not with Xabi Alonso.
Well, it definitely does feel like the players turn it up when they do and turn it down when they want to. Case in point, the loss against Celta in the Bernabeu at the weekend. It felt like they had to go down a goal, down a man, to really put some pep in their step. and changed the conviction with which they played. And I think there, Guillem, lies a problem, because it's also a player's thing, but it's also the manager that influences and motivates those players. So it's this whole mess of things, and I don't know, like, what's coming first, the chicken or the egg? Are the players not playing well to get Xabi sacked? Is Xabi not motivating the players enough to play well? What's the issue?
By the way, when I asked somebody very close to Xavi, and in that changing room, I said, "You started playing minute 65. What's going on? Why didn't you play the previous 65 minutes?" The answer was, that's the answer. And it's not easy to find out where it all starts. But I go back to the culture, to the fact that when you are called to be at the training around 10 o'clock, but you appear at 10:15, or there is a meeting and 3 or 4 players are late, or when you feel that you have the authority or the right to actually moan because you've been replaced in a Clásico, a bunch of things suggest that the culture is not right. So if you actually bring a coach that wants to change it, you, for a leader like Xabi Alonso, give him time, because changing that is the hardest thing in the world.
100%. And Guillem, we talk about entitlement and how that can creep into a team, into a dressing room, and cause a lot of problems. I think Xabi Alonso is at the mercy of the job. It's Real Madrid. No one can turn it down if you get that offer, because it might be like once in a lifetime. But my thing for you is, if they did move on from Xabi Alonso, what are the options?
Two. Santi Solari, who has already been in charge of Real Madrid, and of course gave the debut to Vini. And he is at the club as in the past Vicente Del Bosque and in the past Luis Moloni were at the club. They are the fireworkers. They just there's fire, they will just come in and bring some water into the equation. So Solari is one, and Arbeloa is another one. The feeling is Arbeloa, is in charge of Real Madrid B, they just basically don't feel that he's got the personality perhaps to deal with all the things that are going on. And Santi Solari is more of a diplomatic.
Yeah, but that's like Scotch tape. And if you
it's
not worth it. It's not worth it to sack Xabi Alonso for that.
If the players are entitled already, imagine if you sack Xabi Alonso, the message that sends to the player about the power that they have. So you need to kind of counter that with a manager that has authority.
At that point, you are officially declaring that the lunatics are running the asylum.
And players are bigger than the club.
Wait. Let me say one thing. This is the biggest winning club in the world. So I know that when we are seeing the manager about to be sacked, and Xabi Alonso we all like and we all know and we don't want him sacked, we come up with these things like, oh my God, the players, blah, blah, blah. They're the biggest winning club in the world. So they get things right.
Fair point.
More often than wrong.
Yeah. Fair point, Guillem.
And it's got to do with giving the power to the players. That's how they've done it. It's just that this generation of players are not as good as they think they are.
And not only that maybe that they're not as good as they think they are, but for me, rather, when Real Madrid had difficult moments, I'm thinking of like with Mourinho and back in the day, and a lot needed to be said about Real Madrid and the direction that they were going. Just like the certain questions about the direction that they're going now, there usually was a leader in the dressing room that was unafraid to go to the press and talk and say, like a Sergio Ramos, hey guys, I know we haven't been at our best, but this is Real Madrid. The group is together. We're going to fight. We're going to fight for this manager.
Isn't that what Tchouaméni is doing?
But Tchouaméni is a little bit, he's softer, he's kinder. Courtois is also a good speaker, but you don't need Courtois to speak every single time.
You need a big hitter.
A leader on the pitch. And Mbappé is not that guy. And Vini is not that guy. Vini would rather leak stuff into the press and it get out there. Mbappé doesn't speak, doesn't have that command towards, I'm not talking about towards the group, I'm talking about towards the media as being an emblem of the club outwardly.
So when there is no leaders, and I 100% agree with you, and it's not Tchouaméni, and as you say, Courtois is the goalkeeper after all, who listens to goalkeepers. But Charlie, when you don't have a leader, who normally leads? And I'll announce my answer, which is the loudest. Perhaps not even the most intelligent, the ones who talk, but they're not leaders. So is that what happens?
And in this case, you're looking at Vinny Jr. and Jude Bellingham, and I feel like Jude Bellingham hasn't convinced enough people to think that he is the rightful heir to this midfield, to being the dominant force that they need him to be. So in essence, is Xabi Alonso getting the most out of the players that he has right now?
Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing about Bellingham. Xabi Alonso felt at the beginning that Bellingham was going to help him, because if English players, one thing they have is that they will just, you ask them to just run towards a wall, they'll do it. They will just question you after, but they'll do it because they've been asked to do. They're soldiers. So he has got that from Jude Bellingham. The problem is that he is the kind of player that gets into the box and scores goals, but he's been asked to do a lot of things that leaves him out of his comfort zone, like being a midfielder. He's not really a midfielder, so he's uncomfortable. Then when he's got to go on pressure, he sees the other two that are not. That doesn't help either. So he has been physically not at his 100%. He's getting there, which hasn't allowed him to lead on the pitch as much as he could. So right now, you don't have the Kroos, the Modric. I'm not talking quality, but that as well. The personalities of Sergio Ramos or people like that.
Guillem Mbappé is in the squad. Is he going to play?
He will play, but he won't be 100%. That's my impression. And it's not to do with breaking a finger, which if we broke a finger, we wouldn't play. But that's not a big thing for a player, it seems. But it's for a problems that he's got on his left knee. And that means that he won't be able to perhaps do a lot of things that he does. In any case, we've been told he won't be 100%, but he wants to be part of this. And this very much looks like perhaps what the team that you're going to see, because there is so many players injured, including Camavinga, who's not in the squad. And of course, all the players at the back, including also Militao and Tren and Carvajal and so on, that makes the back four, perhaps that one, unless a City are thinking Real Madrid play with 5 at the back, because they need to protect themselves. And if that's the case, you may see perhaps Tchouaméni still in the middle, but a back 5 that will give Xabi Alonso a little bit more safety. And if that's the case, again, perhaps Güler is the one that will come out and you get another centre back there.
It definitely sounds like Xabi Alonso reverting to a back 5 is him pissing his own way. Well, that's Real Madrid, Manchester City for you. Guillem, thank you very much.
Top man, Guillem, as always.
Top man, top shirt. Let's go.
It's Real Madrid against Manchester City in the Bernabeu today. All of our Champions League coverage continues throughout the day. Thanks for watching this video from Morning Footy. For all news and insights regarding leagues around the world like EFL, Serie A, and all UEFA competitions, both men's and women's, don't forget to sign up for Paramount+.